Hi there, I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. If you're feeling drained, hesitant, stuck in self-doubt, or you just have a case of the vlogs, the Art of Badassery podcast is here to help you unleash your mojo once and for all. We'll provide you with tips, techniques, and real-life examples of how you can kick ass in all areas of your life. You'll learn how to flex your mental muscles, rise above fears, and turn setbacks into superpowers. So let's enter the dojo and let's get to work. Hello and welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer, and today's guest is me. Hi, me. Hi, everyone. It's me. We're just doing a shorty podcast today, a solo podcast today about the 6 habits of high performers. The 6 habits that I think every high performer should have and probably already does have, because that's why they are high performers in the first place. So I'm going to talk about these 6 habits, why you should care, and how they can turn you into a high-performing badass, ready to kick ass and take names, figuratively, of course, and not run out of steam, right? That's the goal. Not running out of steam in this so-called life as you keep chasing your dreams, not giving up on them because we get too tired or too distracted, right? Going full speed ahead. So whether you consider yourself a high performer already, if you want to be a higher performer than you already are, or you're just looking for ways to increase your efficiency, your productivity, and of course, your badassery without burning out, then this episode is for you. Before I dive into these 6 habits, I want to give you a little bit of context of why they are so important to me, why I speak on them. The next iteration of my career, if you will, if you have known me for a long time, you'll recognize this story that I'm about to lay out for you, which is my story essentially, but also how it's now become this culmination of I've just got certified as a high performance coach because I felt like it brought all the things that I've studied, all of the things that I've been trained in, and all of the things that are near and dear to me under kind of one umbrella. So that's why I'm using the words high performance a lot lately. I just love it. And I think it sums up so many awesome things that we're going to dive into. So let me rewind about 23 years ago, and I'm going to do this really quick, of how I got started in this career in the wellness, well-being industry. I guess you can put that as the kind of overarching thing. But it really started with a martial arts class. And I walked into this dojo in the year 2000 and fell madly in love with this martial art called Hapkido. Fast forward a year, you all know the 9/11 story already. Again, if you don't, it's in my TEDx talk. I tell it in my keynotes, but essentially it's that defining moment or period of time in my life where everything shifted for me. You know, I worked 3 blocks south of the towers. I was doing event planning, but didn't even get to plan my first event yet because their first event in this loft space actually happened on September 10th, the night of September 10th, and I wasn't involved in that event. So I didn't even get to plan any events. Boom. And then that happened. A lot of you, like I said, know the story, so I will condense it. But essentially, I was there 3 blocks south when the first tower fell, thrown into a closet, scared, paralyzed from fear. And then finally, hours later, made it to the dojo where I was training. So that became this metaphor for me where all of a sudden, I felt safe that day. And in the weeks and months afterwards, I was out of a job. So that's the part of the story I don't really talk about much, is what happened afterwards. Well, I didn't have a job because that building was closed down and no one could even go there anyway, right? All of like lower Manhattan was blocked off unless you lived there. So I was out of a job and needed to figure out how I'm going to pay my rent because I was literally, paycheck to paycheck. So In the meantime, all I was doing though, I was loving going to this dojo where I was feeling stronger. I was learning these really cool skills, life-saving skills. And at night, I was bartending. My brother owned a nightclub in Upper Manhattan at the time. So I was bartending at night to pay the bills. So I'd be like, up till 4 a.m. at least, because the club's closed at 4, smoking cigarettes, doing shots with customers, and would sleep, until, I don't know, 10 or 11, get my coffee, and then go to the dojo, right? And train pretty much for hours a day because I absolutely loved it. So that's all of a sudden, like I said, when life just started to change for the better, I would say. But it took a whole year for me to actually fully do it because I wound up getting another job as a nightclub manager at this little nightclub called West 8th, and it was on West 8th Street. And I did that for a year. I was the daytime manager, so I was like ordering the liquor and doing all those things, booking the parties. And I worked in a basement, essentially. It was like underground. So I barely saw the light of day. It was not for me. So finally, as I was doing that and then going to the dojo right after work for hours and, taking classes and really soaking it in, this new way of being, this new way of life, really, which is what it was becoming. So fast forward, I get referred to go become a personal trainer at this little boutique gym called the Printing House in the West Village. And that's when this new idea of fitness came into my mind. Okay, well, I love martial arts, so how can I make a living? Let me get into fitness. Okay. So I did that for a year in the gym, got certified, all the things, and then started my own business, essentially. So I became a full-time personal trainer. And again, all in my free time, I'm going to the dojo. Couple years into that, I go get a health coaching certification at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition because I knew that fitness wasn't the only means of being well and well-being. Nutrition was a major, major part of that as well. So I got that certification, added that into my practice, kept going to the dojo every day that I could. And then later on, so that was 2005. And at the time, health coaching was a very new thing. A lot of people didn't even know what that meant. So I always felt like I needed to get more credentials. So I went back to school to get a clinical nutrition master's degree. And that was in 2009. Then I left New York with my 3rd degree black belt and came to Los Angeles for a sunnier lifestyle. There's a whole other story, personal story that I can tell in another podcast. But essentially, I landed here with big dreams, right? Big dreams, even though people were like, oh, there's going to be so much competition. There's a million personal trainers out in LA, blah, blah, blah. I came anyway. And again, had to start with what I knew. So I knew how to train people. So that's what I started doing. A few years into it, I got some random, consulting gigs with Beachbody, running some programs for them, training trainers in P90X for Tony Horton, ghostwriting a nutrition book for a Dancing with the Stars star. Very random things. Even more random, went traveling around the world with some VIP clients, which was incredible. I'll do another podcast on that too, because it's so fabulous. But here's the thing. In that first decade in New York, where I was doing all this physicality, right? Really leaning into the physical part of fitness and well-being, and then the inner part with the nutrition, I was also on my own, not doing it for work, but I was doing self-development work. So I was going to all the seminars, I was reading all these books, and I really, really enjoyed it. This was a seed that was planted in me from my dad's passion for self-development and personal development and self-improvement, if you will. And him and I would always like talk about it incessantly and share about the different books we were reading, etc. So again, now this kind of second decade back in Los Angeles, after I did the training and blah, 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 I knew that fitness wasn't it for me. I knew there was more, and I always wanted to become a public speaker. And I knew that because of sitting in Tony Robbins events when I was younger, and just looking around and seeing how people were so mesmerized by his presence, by his words, by his message. And I just remember thinking, if I could just do something like that to improve people's lives, that would make me so fulfilled. So at some point in this LA journey now, I felt like I had to go for it. I had to start getting on stages. So I started with self-defense on college campuses, and then later kept building out my kind of corporate speaking career, if you will, by adding new things, created the art of badassery, etc. So why did I start this podcast with this whole long story about my career? Is twofold. One, I just want to remind you that I've really been chasing my dreams, I feel, for over 2 decades now. And there have been so many times that I've wanted to give up. I mean, so many times that I've, you know, failed and wanted to throw in the towel or just take a long winter's nap. But I really knew that one, I couldn't, because I burned the boats long ago. There's no like corporate career to jump back on, or to fall back on. There's no real job out there that I could just apply for and easily get at this point in my career. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not putting myself down at all. I just mean like I've really crafted a unique spot for myself where the boats are burned. And if you don't know that expression, I love it. It's like can't leave the island, right? The boats are burned. So I'm here, and I'm here for the long run. And I know that I wouldn't be here, and I would not be able to continue if it weren't for these high performance habits that are now such a big part of who I am, that I now, can train on it, coach on it, teach on them, because of all of the work I've done, all of the credentials I have, and all of the training that I've put in, but more so because I use them in my own life. And that's really what I want to share with you, is that I know if I didn't have these habits to fall back on, that everything I've built to this day would feel like a house of cards, right? The next big storm that swoops in, this house of cards that I've built could just topple at any second. But because I have these habits in place, it's like a foundation, a very strong foundation that I've built this house upon. And that's what I want for you, everyone listening. I want you to have such a strong foundation that when the storms come, because you know they will, that you will be unshakable, you will be sturdy, you will be grounded, you will be steady, and you will still be able to take one step in front of the other and continue to build and grow and create the life of your dreams. How does that sound? Okay. It's weird to record and ask questions and not get answers, but that's okay. So here we go. These are the 6 habits. Ready? They are mindset, mindfulness, meditation, movement, nutrition, and sleep. And now I'm going to go into all of them. And I want to tell you really how they fit into my life, how I've made them work for me over time, why they should be important to you as well, and how you can incorporate them into your life, starting slowly in bite-size increments, if you will. If you don't already have them, you may have a lot of these checked off already. I created this new program, an online group coaching course called Burnout to Badass, which I'm currently in right now with my first group. And we're about, at time of recording this, we are more than halfway through right now. So we're at week 5 out of 8 weeks. And it is really lighting me up to see how people have started to really latch on to some of these habits and incorporate them into their lives and see how it's changing them for the good. And also starting out, how some people already had a lot of these checked boxes, already had a lot of these routines in their lives, but now kind of rounding them out with the new ones for them, or strengthening some of them has really been a game changer for a lot of folks. So again, if you want more information on the Burnout to Badass program, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. And that link is in my link tree, it's in all my bios, and it'll be in the description of this in the notes as well. So let's start with mindset. For me, mindset is the most important thing that I work on, that I want my clients to work on, that I think makes the biggest difference in life. That's at the top. Everything else trickles down from there. So building a strong, a positive, a resilient, a joyful, a peaceful, any kind of mindset that you want, right? That leads to all those feelings, that's the work. That's the work that we do every single day in this dojo, proverbial dojo, right? The place that we show up to the mat every single day and do the work. It stems from our mindset, and then everything else can flow from there. Because if you think about it, think about, either yourself or people that you know that don't have a growth mindset, that think things are just the way they are and they'll never improve, or they say things like, this is just how I am. That those are different kind of people, right? They're not listening to podcasts like this. And it's not a bad thing, and they're not bad people. I'm not saying anything like that. But there's a difference between wanting to grow your mindset, wanting to work on your mindset, and being in a place where you just don't. So the daily work that I do to work on my mindset is through first observing my thoughts, getting to a place where I can recognize the negative thoughts. I can do a pattern interrupt, which is essentially just anything to interrupt that pattern, because again, we have these grooves in our brain that kind of go around and round and round when we're in that downward spiral. When one negative thought leads to another and another, we need something to interrupt that pattern. So it could be an affirmation. So I use affirmations from time to time. Not time to time, I'm sorry, that's a lie. I use them every single day. I speak to myself in a supportive way every day. And when I don't, I can tell right away. So what I do also is I start the morning with a meditation, which is one of the 6 habits. So I'm not going to get into it here. I'll talk about it separately. And just so you know, a lot of these 6 habits will have some crossover, especially with mindset, because mindset affects everything. So I meditate, then I go right into journaling. And in that journaling process, I start to speak to myself in a positive way. So everything I write down is affirmative. Everything I write down is affirmative. It's affirming my positivity, my mindset, what I'm attracting, what I'm focusing on, what I'm building, what I'm creating, right? It's really powerful. And I love that practice so much. And so between the meditation and the journaling, it really kind of lasts a few hours at least, puts me in a really positive mindset. Like I said, at least for those first few hours of the day. Then I'll start catching myself, speaking to myself in a not so kind way, and I'll have to use some affirmations or pattern interrupt with some body movement, go for a walk, lift some weights. I've talked about this in, I believe in episode number 1. I believe in an earlier episode on dealing with rejection. So when I'm working with clients, right, I do the same kinds of things. We put in practices that will work for them. But really it's about recognizing limiting beliefs and interrupting those limiting beliefs and creating more empowering thoughts. So when you have that mindset of strength and resilience and growth, right, a growth mindset, you will use more discernment in life. And that leads me to habit number 2, which is mindfulness. And a lot of people ask, well, what's the difference between mindset and mindfulness, Jen? Well, to me, mindfulness is about using discernment, choice, getting to choose the thoughts that we think every day, getting to choose the acts, our actions that we put into practice every day, getting to choose how we want to feel, right? Do you even remember that sometimes? Remember that you get to choose how you want to feel every moment of every day, regardless of what's happening out there, regardless of what your boss just said to you, regardless of the deadlines, regardless that you just got dumped and rejected and right, and the bills are due, all of that, regardless of all of that, you get to choose how you want to feel every minute of every day. And guess what? There's so much power in that. That is where the power lies for real. Wow. So using discernment, being mindful, how we use that in my Burnout to Badass is about tracking certain habits, right? Because first you want to get really present to the habits that are already running your life. You might not think you have a lot of habits, but you have a lot of habits. They might not be supporting you. You might not be conscious of them. You might not be choosing them, but they're choosing you, right? Habits like blowing off your workouts, going for the sugary dessert after lunch when you really could have a piece of fruit, right? It's all those things. Those are habits that are just part of what you're doing because you're not choosing powerfully. So recognizing where those are really, again, that's where the power is. That's where the power is. Okay. After mindfulness, we have meditation. And I can do an entire podcast series probably on meditation because it's such a big part of my life these days. It's changed my life. It's something that I double down on. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing bait and switches with either being on podcast interviews or even this podcast. It's like, yeah, all that stuff. But really, you should meditate, right? So if you feel like I'm throwing it in your face a lot, it's because I'm so passionate about it. It's because it is the thing that has probably made the biggest difference in my life, especially over the last 5-ish years or more. So 2018 is when I committed to a daily practice, and I haven't missed a day since then. 2018 is when I went to a Mind Valley intuition training. So again, kind of like a bait and switch. I was like, ooh, intuition, I want to be more intuitive. And the whole thing was a meditation training, Jose Silva meditation training. In fact, I'm not sure the order of the episodes that are coming out, but I have the co-founder of Mind Valley coming on this podcast. We just recorded it already, Christina Mand. And I tell her that's how I was in the same room with her and her ex-husband, Vishen Lakiani, who really trained me in Jose Silva method of meditation. So that you'll find out more about that if you're interested in that technique or anything like that in that episode with Christina Mand. But really, you don't need all that. All you need is like 3 minutes and your breath. That's how you start. Small baby steps. In fact, in my Burnout to Badass program, we start with 1 minute, 1 minute meditation, because most people's excuse of why they can't meditate or won't meditate is because it takes so long, or I can't sit there that long. I just can't turn off my thoughts for that long. Yeah, that's okay. You're not supposed to. No one said you have to meditate a certain way. There are many, many, many methods of meditation. When people ask me what I'm doing these days, it's very different than when I was doing 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, or even last year, right? My meditation, I add things to it little by little. If I like a different technique, I'll just add it in, or I'll do a second meditation in the evening. Right now, I'm leaning into Joe Dispenza meditations. Again, something if you want to find out more about Joe Dispenza, will you come on my podcast, please? My God, that would be so amazing. One day, people, we're planting the seed. Anyway, look him up. But I don't actually, if you're a beginner, I do not suggest you jump into Joe Dispenza meditations because they're out there and you really need to read his books to understand what he's doing. or else it's going to feel very weird. In the meantime, like I said, you can use a free app like Insight Timer, Headspace Calm, and just use a guided meditation. Start at 1 minute, then 3, then 5, and see how it goes. The key is consistency. Again, it's showing up to the mat every day, getting to the dojo, showing up to the mat, and doing the work, putting in the reps, getting stronger and stronger, building that muscle. But I will say this, I say it changed my life. Well, how? It makes me calmer. I've leaned into a deep faith that things will work out. I worry everything all the time. You can ask my sister. She'd be like, stop worrying about everything. Stop worrying so much. And it was like I couldn't turn it off until meditation. And again, not in the first few days, weeks, or probably even years. It takes a long time, but the benefits are so, so life-changing. Okay, we have mindset, mindfulness, meditation. The fourth M is movement. And notice I use movement and not the word exercise, because some people really can't stand that word, exercise. So they, will avoid it at all costs. But everyone knows that we need movement in our lives, right? That our bodies are meant to move every single day. We're not meant to sit at a desk for 12 hours a day. We got to get outside. We got to get oxygen, flowing through our bodies. We need those cells need it, right? We need to energize ourselves with that motion, whatever it looks like. Now, over the years, and again, with my fitness background, I know that there are 3 parts to fitness that are really important. 3 parts to movement that are really important. One is strength training. And the older we get, the more important it is for your bones, women, for your hormonal health, right? To balance out those hormones. All humans, for human growth hormone to be released when we're sleeping. But it helps, strength training helps get that going as well. And muscle acts as a sponge. The more muscle that you have on your body, the faster your metabolism will be. But really, like I said, it acts like a sponge to sugar. So anytime you eat sugar or carbohydrates, things that turn into sugar right away, your muscles, right, are going to be the first things to use that sugar. So make sure you strength train. Second thing is cardio. Obviously, we got to get blood pumping and our hearts pumping with cardiovascular exercise. And then last but not least, some type of stretch, recovery, foam rolling, something like that for recovery for your muscles. Foam rolling is excellent for fascia and yoga, whatever you like to do, just make it part of your routine. What the biggest problem is for most people is they get stuck into one of those 3, right? For example, there's a lot of cardio queens out there that only do cardio, and then they don't stretch or they don't lift weights. And then obviously we know people that don't lift weights, but don't stretch. So they're walking around like, meatheads kind of. So all 3 gives you a really balanced physique, but it's also great for your mental health as well. Nutrition, right? 2 more left, nutrition and sleep. Nutrition, again, I can do an entire episode series on nutrition, but here's what I did instead. Instead, I made you a free handout that you can download that has my 12 food rules. And I'm doing quotes, air quotes for the food rules, because really they're guidelines that I swear by, that I believe if you actually follow these, then you'll never have to diet. You'll never have to worry about weight or anything, because these 12 food rules really do the things that help you with your mental health, to help boost your confidence, to help you be able to focus all day long, to give you energy all day long, because it balances your blood sugar, right? That's pretty much the whole thing. If you know how to balance your blood sugar, you're doing great. And that's the key right there. If I had to boil it all down, those 12 food rules will help you balance your blood sugar. Now, also, I touch on things like gut health, because that is really connected to your mental health as well. And I have a couple bonus sheets on there that gives you breakfast options, high protein breakfast options, because that's where people get tripped up a lot, as well as snacking, some great healthy snack foods on that. So if you go to pages.jennifercassetta.com/food rules, that is where you will find it. It'll also be in the notes, but make sure you get that handout ASAP. The last of the 6 habits of high performers is sleep. And this poor little habit is so ignored by so many people, when really it is so, so important. And it connects to a lot of the other habits, right? Because if you're not eating well throughout the day, or you eat too late and have this big, massive meal, and you have too much alcohol that disrupts your sleep patterns, then you don't sleep well, then you wake up feeling awful. And when you wake up feeling awful and not rested, there's studies that show that you will snack more and make poor decisions when it comes to nutrition. So you see how, and people blow off workouts more when they're tired, and their moods are terrible. So that's going to set you up with a negative mindset, on and on and on. Do you see how all these things are connected? Do you see that? I think it's so beautiful. So make sure that you get some great, deep, regenerative sleep. It's when your body heals. It's when your cells regenerate. It is so, so important. Out of these 6, I want to say it's probably number 1, but I already said mindset was number 1. Maybe it's number 2, right? Getting really great sleep is just going to keep you young and happy and joyful and fit and strong. So make sure you make it a priority. How do you do that? Well, again, in my Burnout to Badass group, I made sleep hygiene handouts for them. We talk about it, but essentially it's about a few different things. It's making sure you have the right nutrition, so you're not waking up because of too much caffeine or sugar or alcohol. It's setting up your environment. So look around your bedroom. Is your environment set up for success? Do you have blackout shades? Is there light coming in from clocks or anything like that? You want to make sure it's dark, it's cool. You want to make sure that screens have been put away. So then things kind of, the leading up to your bedtime as well is important. So making sure you turn your screens off 30 minutes before, and you're not spinning and spinning and spinning in your thoughts. So there are ways to downregulate your nervous system before you get into bed, like the meditation, like the journaling, like the things I've talked about already, right? Being mindful, positive mindset before you go to bed as well. Woohoo. Okay. So much to unpack there. I would love to hear from you. What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? What would you like some more information on? What can I go do a deeper dive for you? Because really, I appreciate you so much for tuning in and listening, but I want to make sure that I'm constantly delivering value for you. So it's about you. So let me know. I welcome the feedback. Make sure you get that handout that I already said at pages.jennifercassetta.com/food rules. And that's it, folks. 6 habits of high performers so you can feel like a badass all day long. Thanks for listening. Bye.